Smile 2. So Smile 2, of course, is the sequel to the first Smile film, which the first Smile film surprised me. I really wasn't looking forward to it very much. You know what? When I saw the trailers for the very first Smile film, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of that shitty horror movie that came out before it. Truth or Dare. Because everybody had that stupid ass smile on their face in that movie too. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be another weak ass Truth or Dare type shit there. But it was surprising what it did with grief and what it did with as far as like the demon really. I mean, that demon was really fucking with that woman, and just turning her life all upside down. And the demon is doing the same thing here as well. In this, you have a new lead who's played by Naomi Scott, who plays Sky Riley. Sky Riley is a huge international pop star there, and she's about to go on a world tour. But she kind of gets infected by this smile demon. So what happens with this demon is if this person kills themselves in front of you, the demon passes to you and then starts to also mess with you until eventually you do the same thing. So it's kind of her experiences there as she increasingly becomes more terrified, more stressed. And when she's stressed, she does this thing where she kind of rips her hair out of her head over and over again. So there's that. Plus, she has a history of drug addiction there. Her history of drug addiction led to a car accident with her boyfriend, who's played by Jack Nicholson's son in this there, who is in this movie for a little bit. So I'm gonna pass it to you, Chris. Get your thoughts here. What are your thoughts on Smile 2?
Yeah, I really dug the hell out of this one. The first one is one where similar to you, when they first started marketing it and I saw the trailers, like I think I remember seeing the trailer in front of Top Gun before that movie started, and I was just kind of baffled, like, the fuck is this stupid shit doing here in front of this movie that's supposed to be awesome? And I was just kind of making fun of it the entire time before it came out. And then all of a sudden it came out and people saw and they came back like, no, this movie's actually like really, really, really good. You should check it out. And eventually I did on home video, and yeah, I did like it. It did. I remember having a few issues with it. It's a movie where you can definitely see what it takes from, whether it be The Ring or It Follows, or if you want to list a shittier example, The Bye Bye Man. You can kind of link some similarities between the two of them, but it still manages to have its own fresh enough angle to it that you don't mind, and you do really get into it, especially with the performances in that movie. And this one's very much the same, except I think it goes better, it goes bigger, and it's to the movie's benefit, which isn't always the case with sequels. In terms of the scope, in terms of the new topics that it deals with, in terms of like fame and the way all the sort of like inconveniences and dangers that come along with that, and how that sort of messes up with your day-to-day life, and also the fact that you're on top of that, you're also now dealing with this curse that's been passed down to you, and how those two sort of like crash into each other throughout the entire course of the movie makes for a really engaging watch. And much like the first one, it's also carried by a really, really strong lead in the form of Naomi Scott, who's always good and stuff. Like, even if the movie sucks, like, I fucking hated that Aladdin remake from a couple years ago, but
Mm.
her and Will Smith were the only two things about that movie I liked, basically. And here, I think this is her best performance yet. She really gets a chance to shine and show off what she can do with a bunch of different emotions and scenarios that she gets thrown into across the course of the movie. Honestly, if the substance didn't exist, she might be my pick for like best horror performance of the year by far. Like, it's that good what she's able to do here, and the scares that they're able to mine from it, and also the camera work is really impressive. Like, you can tell the director is really like going out of his way to up his game in a lot of ways as much as he possibly can with this movie, and I think he does a great job of it. So yeah, if you're a fan of the first movie, I think you're going to really dig this one. Even though it does cover some familiar ground story-wise, they add enough new angles and aspects to it that it doesn't feel like just completely like sequelitis rehash.
Mm, yeah. And the same director from the first one is coming back to direct the sequel, Parker Finn, who this is his only 2 credits, is just the first and second Smile, his only 2 directing credits there. And he also wrote this movie as well. And yeah, I mean, you know, first one was a surprise, and the sequel is also a surprise because horror sequels sometimes can be also a little iffy as far as if they're gonna be good or not. But yeah, I think this one is a really good, solid follow-up to the first film there. You mentioned Naomi Scott, who does a really great job here. I think as Sky Riley, you mentioned, she might be up for, one of the best horror performances of the year, if not for maybe something like Demi Moore or Margaret Qualley in The Substance. Also, this year, you also had a really great performance from the lead actress in the first Omen. I thought was also really good as well. And then even the actress in Longlegs, I thought she was also very good. Um, but yeah, Naomi Scott, who people might know, you mentioned she was in Aladdin. She was Princess Jasmine, which is probably one of her more bigger roles. She was also in Charlie's Angels. She was also in the Pink Ranger in the Power Rangers film. There's also some other stuff she was in. But she really really goes all out with this role here, and all kind of the emotion that she kind of goes through in the movie. Because, like I said, this demon, what it does to a person's life, just completely turns it upside down. And mention that she has that history of addiction as well there, and also that due to her car accident, she suffered, severe injuries from that, so she's got a lot of pain from that. So she's craving, something to relieve that pain. You see in that, like she's got these scars on her body from that. And then Naomi Scott is actually a real also singer as well in real life, so that translates as well to the film from that experience. And then we just had another movie just this year, The Trap, which also had a pop star who came and also did the movie. He had M Night Shyamalan starter in that. And sometimes when movies, kind of revolving around people who are musicians, and then you actually get to listen to their music, it's like, oh, really? They're the biggest musician in the world, really, in this fictional movie universe. But here, it's like I can kind of see it. Like I was like some of the songs in this that Naomi Scott was performing, I was like, it's actually pretty good. I was like, I actually want to kind of listen to this on the soundtrack or something like that. So I thought that was pretty good there. Um, and then even though you do have, I think a solid supporting cast in this, it's really the Naomi Scott show. It really is kind of her kind of movie here that she's really leading. I mean, most of the movie, pretty much every frame of the movie is her in it, and kind of her dealing with this demon here, and like the length she's kind of goes through to get rid of this demon, and what it kind of does to her life. Even though the supporting cast, I think is solid there. Of kind of you have some people in this movie, like you have Rosemary DeWitt, who's in this, who plays her mother and manager there, who's riding her ass about the tour. That so much is dependent on her. If you don't get this tour done, that's it. You know what I mean? The studio's gonna sue us. We're gonna owe all this money. So there's all this pressure from her mother. You also have Lucas Gage, who plays in this scene. He plays he's right here. He plays the drug dealer there. I thought the woman who played her friend, Gemma, I thought she was kind of the weakest, out of everybody here. What did you think about some of the supporting cast?
I think there's some standouts. I did really like Rosemary DeWitt as her mom, like you mentioned. Ray Nicholson, even though he's not in the movie a whole lot, when he is there, he makes a really big impact in a good way. And he, as the marketing is well aware because they're using it in a lot of the posters and spots I've noticed, he really did inherit his father's grin right there, like that shining, like rictus grin, Joker grin right there. And they use it to really great effect in the movie. Also, as you briefly saw there, Kyle Gallner from the first movie returns in a way that manages to get the plot going again. And I will say, I do kind of agree that like the best friend is maybe not the weakest. I won't say she's bad, but at the same time, she's not given enough to do to really make as big of an impact as I think they were necessarily looking for. But at the same time, like in terms of like how the plot is built around it, I do get like why they sort of do what they do with her in a way. But overall, like I wouldn't say I really had like any like true complaints about the acting, like necessarily. Like, and even if I did, I think Naomi Scott is so good that she would theoretically make up for anyone else who wouldn't necessarily be pulling their weight.
Yeah. Any weak spots for you film wise, just in general?
Mostly just it is so like following the same beats of the first movie plot wise that you can sort of map out where it's going to go right down to the ending, which I actually called when I saw the trailer. I was like, I'll bet this is how they're going to end it, and maybe this is how they tee up whatever might come on later down the line. And it turns out I was right. But still, the way they do it is so well executed that I wasn't sitting there like, oh god, of course they're doing this shit. Let's It's like, no, it makes sense that it would end here and that they would do this. And yeah, I will say, if you're not a fan of the first one, I don't know how you're gonna really like sort of sync up with this. Like maybe you'll like it more, maybe you'll find it on the same level as the first one if you didn't like that. But for me, I think if you are a fan, you're gonna like this. And I personally think I like it even more than the first one. Like I think it's more confident. I think it tries interesting stuff in terms of its direction. And I think it's got an even more dynamic lead than the first movie, who was already really good. But I think even there, this is an improvement. And so yeah, this is a movie I really, really dug.
Mm, okay. Yeah. I haven't rewatched the first one in a minute, like since it first came out, but I did really like it. It makes me want to go back and watch the first one again. Um, and check that one out. Like that also did some really good things there in the first one. And even though like the person is going through all these dramatic things, there's also some humor in that as well. Like the like how bad things are going for them. Like I remember that scene in the first one where like the woman shows up to the little kid's birthday party and then there's like a dead cat or something as a gift. And then she's opening it, and then everybody's freaked out. Like there's that, and then there's some good stuff in this one too. Like she knocks an old woman down from the stage and she falls on the table. There's that moment. So there's also some humor, a little bit of humor also tossed in it as well in this movie that kind of also makes it work. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you didn't like the first one, as you mentioned, it's hard to see if you would like this because it's pretty much the similar kind of thing going on in this one, just like you mentioned on a bigger scale. And then with the way this movie ends, it's like they could do Smile 50. You know what I mean? I don't want to spoil the ending, but the way this kind of movie ends there. There is a little bit of problem I had with the ending when in terms of like it kind of because with this demon, it plays with reality, it plays with the person's perception of reality. And then therefore it really messes with the audience as far as is what the person because you're following Naomi Scott, she's a titular character, and it is Sky Riley. So it's kind of like, okay, what are we saying that is real? What isn't real? Then at the end of the movie, it kind of goes like, okay, how much of this was and wasn't real? And there, so that was a little bit like, I'm not too sure I'm a fan of that personally. What say you there about that?
Uh, yeah, I can see how that would bug some people, and are some instances where they execute the whole thing of like, "Oh, this was not real all along," and it's like, all right, I feel like that could, for some people, that could theoretically take away from the journey of the entire movie, in terms of like how this character like tries to progress her relationships with certain people and how that can backfire in some cases. So I can see that sort of being for some people being like, "Ah, you kind of pulled your punches here and there on those things." But for me, it just kind of added to the feeling of hopelessness that the movie felt like it was really going for. It adds that feeling to me of like, fuck, there really is no like sort of getting out of this situation that she's in right now. And I think that adds to the dread of the entire movie, where so much of the horrible shit that happens ends up feeling inevitable and not like something that could just be easily avoided by doing one single thing. So I get why some people would be turned off by that device, but for me, it adds to the movie in ways that I don't think the movie could reach if it didn't have that going for it.
Mm, okay. It didn't ruin the movie or anything for me, the ending, it just was kinda like, I don't know, sometimes I like that, with that stuff plays with reality just as far as if you can I don't know, maybe if you go back in the movie, maybe you can tell what is and what isn't real, maybe there's, a better kinda sign at that. But yeah, I still thought strong sequel. I thought this was really well done and kind of how they handled things here. Really surprised me again because, like I said, sometimes with horror sequels and what they do there, it's not always guaranteed that sometimes it's going to be good or they're going to do a good follow up to that. And then sometimes with horror sequels, it's like okay, you're just doing the same thing again, and then what are you doing to really move the story forward or progress the story? And I think they did a good job at doing that. And again, wonderful performance from Naomi Scott, who really, I mean, she's really giving it her all here in this and does a fantastic job there. So for me, I'd give it a good peak for me. What about you there, Chris?
Yeah. I forgot the ratings. What's above peak?
This is cinema.
Then I'd stick with Peak. Like, I don't think I'm quite ready to go, like, this is cinema, this is, like, the greatest ever, because it does have those sort of trappings that I mentioned earlier of being so close in structure to the first one that I could see some people, like, finding it just kind of repetitive, but for me but I don't know, that wasn't enough to, like, drag the movie down so badly for me. Like, I still really enjoyed it. I thought they did a lot of things really, really well, and it's one that, like, I would highly recommend people checking out, especially if they do like the first movie.
Yeah. Do you like that, marketing campaign they do where they have the people go out there, like, at baseball games and stadiums and all this, and then they have people do the smile shit? Do you like that? Do you think that's kinda cool, I guess? Kinda
Oh, yeah,
like
I think it's hilarious, especially for people who don't even know about the movies, like, when the camera focuses on those people, it's like, "What the fuck are they doing? Who are these people? Like, what's going on here?"
yeah. I remember there was one time one of them was at a baseball game, and then the security guard told him to sit down. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Okay. Yeah, so you do got that going on, which is sometimes, I mean, that helps, with the movie, a little bit the viral marketing kinda going on with the movie there with that kinda happening, so, yeah. Do you think they can be successful with a 3rd one? You think they test the waters with a 3rd one?
Um Yeah, the movie ends in a way where if they wanna do a 3rd one, they have a very clear setup for it. It would be kind of strange if they didn't take it, which we have seen 3rd movies do recently, like that last Jurassic World movie, like, had a clear setup for itself, like, practically gift wrapped for it by the one that came before, and instead it's like, "Nah, let's just make this about bugs now." So, yeah, assuming that the same team is still in place for the 3rd one, I think it does have a chance to really, like, keep the momentum going and stay on par with these last couple in terms of quality. At the same time, I can also see how it might be a struggle because the conceit that it would theoretically have is so grand and so, sort of epic in scope if you really stop to think about, like, how the ramifications of how this movie ends, that you're like, "Man, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna need to, like, bump up the budget by, like, 5 times, like, what these movies cost, possibly, like, put together." So, I don't know, but if they do and it's the same people, I will still be looking forward to it, and I will be hopeful that they can match the quality that these 2 have had so far. So, yeah, I'm down for it.
Yeah. So this had a budget of 28 million, and so far in the box office has made 46 million on the 3 day total there. So yeah, it's doing about a little slightly better than the first. So it's just slightly better.
Mm.
So but much success to this movie. I hope it does well. I hope it doesn't just come to streaming in like 3 weeks and they're like, hey, here you go. Like Wild Robot is already on streaming already. That
Yeah.
was just out. So yeah, yeah. 2 peaks for Smile 2.